As we wind down, bro, what occupies your minds these days?
Man, how many more questions you got?
This might be the last one.
What occupies my mind these days?
Besides movie.
No. Hey, okay. Let's drop the bomb here.
Oh,
I wanted to tell you that Tristan's pregnant.
what?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. This is a genuine reaction, everybody. We didn't script this at all. Yeah, I'm gonna be a dad, dude.
I'm gonna freaking cry, bro. Yo.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's she is 14 weeks pregnant. That has been 100% my world and reality. So I know.
This is gonna take some time.
And welcome back, everyone, to the 990 podcast. I am Jay.
I'm Ray.
Man, how was that cold open?
Yo, when I heard that, I was so stoked, yo.
Yeah.
And again, the reason why was because we talked about it. Like
We have.
And I was like, there's no way in my head. I
Yeah.
was like, there's no way Jay was not thinking about it. Like in terms of having the talks with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
because
know-
I was like, Joe, you guys would be great parents.
Thank
That's
you.
what I was thinking
Thank
at
you.
the time.
I appreciate that,
Yeah,
man. I really
so
do.
I was like, they gotta have some desire. And what's it like now in terms of like the desire to
Yeah,
have again?
well, I mean, well, let's rewind a bit. So obviously we recorded that quite out of sequence, right? So I want to say that footage was probably a couple months ago.
Yes.
As of today, Tristan is currently 22 weeks pregnant. So we're at like that 5.5 month mark, entering into our third trimester. And man, it's been a trip, dude. It's been a journey. First trimester was not fun. It was a little rough. I don't wanna put this on me. Tristan had a very rough time physically, emotionally. A lot of things going on with her just not feeling well. Took it out on me.
I was gonna say, choose your words wisely, bro.
I know I'm mincing my words here. No, my wife is a trooper. She, I want to say the condition is hyperemesis, which is basically just nonstop vomiting, and I'm not joking. I didn't even. It felt like The Exorcist in this place, man. Like honestly, just nonstop throwing up. Could not keep anything down. She actually lost 15 pounds the first couple months of her pregnancy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know that in itself kind of, I don't want to say did not by any means taint the experience, but really kind of put things in perspective of like, wow, this is real. You know, like she is very pregnant. And you know it changed a lot. A lot of things changed. I want to say overnight things changed, but in the course of the last few months, life is completely different for me, man. Completely different.
I think one of those things too, Gerald, like when you say completely different, it's almost as this like there's a snap and then everything's just completely off. No, I wouldn't say off, but you're not used to it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
well, yeah. I mean, it's unknown territory, right?
Yeah, and I
You
think for
know.
some people, they don't. It's hard for them to get used to that thing, that immediate change.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that's happening in real time. You know, one thing that I'm realizing that I'm a little embarrassed to admit about, but you know, I had to kind of put myself in check. I don't think I realized or ever really thought of myself as a selfish person.
Sure.
And when I say that, I kind of want to clean it up a little bit. Like I feel like, you know, I've always put the needs of others before me. But when I say selfish,
Yeah.
I don't think I realize like how much I need myself. Like in regards to attention, when it comes to like the support and, you know, the guidance and the love that I need and require from my partner. You know.
Yeah.
And now that you know, I don't always get that. It's tough, and I think it was kind of an ego check for me that, you know, right now I'm just not the priority. And
That's a big.
it's a big realization, you know, but also like it's one that I'm glad I'm kind of figuring out now versus later. Like, I don't want to wait till the baby comes and be like, hey, I'm the number one guy here. What are you doing, baby?
Yeah, baby.
But yeah, man, I mean, that was an adjustment. It was an adjustment. Tristan, literally, she will tell you she was fighting for her life. She will use those words, but truthfully, just her not feeling well, and her just really not knowing, just so inconsistent of what she's gonna go through in a day. Like, she doesn't have the time to be worrying about what's going on with me. You know what I mean? And and I think that in itself was an adjustment.
Yeah.
But I think we're in a good spot now. After the 5-month mark, I think we're really getting to the point where we're beginning to be adjusted. We are at the point of excitement now.
Yeah.
Where we are, really, I mean, don't get me wrong, we were excited to begin with, but we're really kind of being able to enjoy the pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we kind of turn that page and, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, man. I've heard some stories of, just everyone's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some have horror stories like this. And
bro.
Some have just like a walk in the park almost.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, man, like, what was, I'm curious to just find out, like, how did you guys find out about the pregnancy? Was it planned or like?
Yeah. So we got married in 2018. And then we found out in 2020.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think when Zoe was born.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she's 2 now.
Yeah.
So
22.
22. Yeah. But I think the thought behind it was, let's just enjoy marriage first. Yeah.
Right.
Get a few years in, and then we were thinking, okay, I think it's time now, because Josh is, not so young. We didn't get married young.
Yeah.
And we weren't. We didn't meet each other when we were young as well. So we were like, okay, there's a timeline that we kind of have to follow almost. Only because there's risks when,
I hear you.
We get older and whatnot. She gets older. And we're thinking, okay, yeah, let's plan it. When we found out the first one, and if you listen to the pod, you know that the first, we had a miscarriage on the first one. And it was early. I think it was like less than 4 weeks, I think, we found out.
Gotcha.
So in a sense, obviously it sucks, but in a sense we were like, okay, it's better than later on when you're almost super attached to something. Not that disqualifies it from it being a life or whatever it is. But after that, I think it took a while to get that news from the test, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting how the body works and how people, can get pregnant super easy, and some take a while, and some, maybe can't, or at the time cannot.
Right.
Because one of my friends were telling me like, hey, like, oh, you guys get kids yet? And we're like, oh, no, not yet. We're just kind of enjoying it. She's like, hey, if you're trying to get a kid, do it a year before. And in my mind, I don't know anything about, pregnancy timelines and whatnot.
Right.
I was like, that's 1 year. That's crazy. Like, when you get pregnant quick or whatever.
Right.
But after the miscarriage, we had I wouldn't say a hard time, but it took a while for us to get that news. And so when we got it, I think the first initial thing, we were just thankful. I guess thankful.
Yep.
Yeah. Because coming from a situation that we had with the miscarriage, it sets you in a different.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
Yeah. So Zoe was planned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think I probably shared that, and I talked to Tristan before recording this, and I feel comfortable. We both feel comfortable sharing that. We also had a miscarriage as well. So late last year, we actually found out that she was pregnant, and it was completely unexpected. And I guess what's crazy is, we had always spoken about children.
Okay.
We had kind of just formulated in our head that it wasn't in the cards.
Can I ask why it wasn't in the cards?
Yeah, a couple of different reasons. Okay, so for Tristan and I, we had built this life together. In the last 7 years that we've been together. One that we hold so dear. Like it's like we kind of have our own world encapsulated, where it's like it's just she and I, and the dogs, and we love that. And that was something that's really sacred to us. And not that we didn't want to expand on that, but we just felt like this is great. I feel like this is as close to perfection as possible. And with that said, I think we just really had true happiness, and we were worried that if we messed with that formula, what would happen from there. So there was always that thought.
That's
I've always been overjoyed for friends when I hear that they're gonna have be parents and they're gonna have children. I think that was always just something that I would always be excited for, because I would always think the same thing, like this person's gonna be a great dad or an amazing mother. And for me, I just didn't really ever feel that way. I don't know. I thank you for the compliment early on, but I've heard that before. Like, hey, you'd be a great dad, and it feels nice. But at the same time, I just didn't really think that was what I was meant for. Okay. And again, maybe going back to that selfish piece, where I think unfortunately sometimes Western society puts this idea in your head that you have to have children. And that's kind of just life's path, right?
Yeah.
And if you deviate from that, somehow you're being selfish. Like, you're not, oh, why wouldn't you want to procreate and continue the bloodline or whatever, right?
Sorry, before you move on, I remember we having a conversation about this, and you mentioned it, and I thought in my head specifically, I was like, that's such a responsible thing to do, because people just have children out of without thinking of So I was like, that's the right way to do it. Well, if you're going that path.
You got to think about the financial responsibility of taking care of another life, but also just it is a lifelong commitment, right?
That's what I'm saying. People don't think.
A lot of people don't think about that.
And then the one who loses out is
the child. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, ego piece. I'm 45 years old. I've always done the math, and I think I mentioned this before, but Kyle and I had this kind of. He had mentioned this early on, that if it didn't happen for him by the age of 45, then it was probably a wraps. And for whatever reason, I kind of followed that motto. So 44 came, and then this last April I turned 45, and I was like, that's it. Okay, and then it's so bizarre to think that way, but I just never saw myself wanting to be an old dad, and I think that's a matter of perspective, right?
It is.
I think it is. We can go into the unfairness of the world where women do have a physical timeline, unfortunately, with what they can do with their bodies, and also what's safe.
Yeah.
Whereas you get Robert De Niro and Al Pacino making babies at like 85 years old, right? And you're like, come on, guys, keep it in the pants there. But for me, I was like, I'm gonna be in my 60s by the time this kid graduates, and again, perspective. I don't think I was ever ready to be a father when I was a lot younger, and I think now I'm at a place where, not just financially stable, but emotionally stable. I feel like we're in a good spot. So anyway, back to what happened last October. We found out that she was pregnant. It was funny. It was like 5 a.m, and literally. I just hear, pardon my French, I hear, oh, fuck. I'm like, oh, God. Literally, that's my wife. And I was like, what happened? I literally thought like she fell down or saw a roach or like something. I was like, what? And she's like, nothing. And I was like, all right, cool. Didn't even think about it, right? And then so go about my day, come home. And then that night, she's just like, okay, well, hey, I got to show you something. And she comes out and she has two tests, and then I don't even know what I'm looking at. I'm like, do you have COVID? I'm like, what do these lines mean? I'm so stupid. But she's like, I'm pregnant, you idiot. Like, no, but I don't know, man. Seeing that, I just immediately started crying. Not crying in like, oh, I feel sorry for myself. Crying in a feeling of like, this is something that I didn't think I wanted, and now this is all I want. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, so good.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think because she and I were so on the fence, and we're leaning more towards the idea of not having kids.
Yeah.
I think we were kind of waiting to see what each other's reaction would be. She was really scared. She told me after the fact that she was really scared to tell me. She was afraid of how to react. I was like, what would you think? I was gonna get mad and storm out, like, but
Yeah, maybe.
I think maybe she was just waiting to see what my face was gonna show, and I think just seeing me in that moment, being a blubbering mess, I think that's what she needed to feel good about the situation. Of like, okay, I think we're ready to be parents. So we went with the idea that we were gonna be parents for about 7 weeks, and then we went in for a doctor. It was really odd. Tristan wasn't sick at all, and then she felt all of these changes in her body. She just was like, okay, this is what's going on. Like I can feel it. And then one day, right before we had a checkup, she said like something's wrong. And I was like, what? And she's like, I don't feel pregnant anymore. And it sounds so crazy to be that in tune.
Yeah. No.
But I mean, women know, like
they know.
That's just how amazing females are. But she knew something was up.
Yeah.
We went in and they could not find a heartbeat, and we were crushed, man. Devastating. We had to kind of figure out and kind of rationalize our emotions, and realized that what we were feeling was disappointment and not loss, if that makes sense. I know not everybody, this is for us. I know that's not for everybody. I know some people might take that offensively, and I don't mean to be offensive at all, but for us, it wasn't, we weren't at the point where this was our child. We were just really excited on the idea of having a child. And so, there's that disappointment, of course, but we just didn't feel like it was a loss, if that makes sense. But we talked, I think we took a moment to be upset and disappointed and sad. And we kind of really started talking about like, is this something that we want to do? Is this something we actually really want to plan out?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think because of that, those 7 weeks that we had in our idea that this is what was going to be our future. That's all it took for us to be like, okay, let's do this.
Wow.
And we were really lucky. Just a couple months later, we found out that she was pregnant, and 5.5 months later, here we are. So man, it's a lot, man.
What did the conversations look like after you got pregnant, when you guys found out the second time?
The second time? The nerves are gone. Okay. So, I mean, obviously nervous and anxious in a different way, but it's not, it's not a shock. There's the surprise and there's the excitement, but the shock element is gone. And I think that's a good thing, because I feel like we were able to kind of go into it with a little bit more open eyes. Right.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, I think benefited the both of us. But yeah, thus far, I mean, I want to say that where we are right now, I think like, again, reiterating the fact that, we're really excited about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
We're able to really start talking to people. We waited till really late to talk to people about it.
Yeah.
Actually, you were one of the first people we told. So funny to tell you on the podcast.
Oh, dude, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was fun.
And what else is really funny? I think I'm trying to think of the first person I told.
Parents.
Believe it or not, I talked to a couple of friends before my parents. And I think the reason why we wanted to wait till we had hit 3 months before we announced to our families. Because we really wanted to make sure that everything was on track.
Did you announce it to other people the first time? First bit?
No, we didn't. We held that close to the chest. And I think, it's so funny. Shoot, man. I mean, even a few years ago, I'd say pre-pandemic Jay, I would have been all over Instagram, be like, I'm gonna be a dad.
For real.
You know what I mean? Like, I cringe at how much of my life I used to share on the internet.
Really?
And I don't know, to me, social media has always been a fun thing, but I think for whatever reason, I really dialed back in the last few years, and now I post what I want to post, but at the same time, like a lot of the things that go on in my personal life, I don't feel the need to kind of put on blast. And kind of funny to be talking about this right now. I also realize our reach is not that great. So
that makes us feel better.
Whoever's listening to this, I know that this might come to a surprise for some people that are listening to this, like, oh, Jay's gonna be a dad, and that's awesome. But I definitely think I'm gonna be kind of careful of what we do decide to put on social media.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
That was kind of the response that I got from a few people when I told them.
Oh yeah.
They were like, "Oh, you didn't did you put anything on Instagram? I'm like, no, I'm talking to you in real life. Like, come on, fool. There's such a thing as a phone call, you know? I don't have to like put it on Reels.
True.
Yeah. Do you remember who you folks told first?
We probably told maybe our parents. From my they're always stoked.
Right.
There's no, my mom describes it as when the next baby comes, the love doesn't grow, it multiplies.
Yes.
And that's kind of the same reaction she got. I think it's different because I was the only boy in the family.
Okay.
And I was the only one left without. So I think they were extra stoked for
There you go.
Plus, I'm a favorite. So they're not gonna.
Yeah.
No one's gonna argue that.
Yeah.
In our family.
Yeah.
But they were. My parents were the first ones. I don't think we had like an official announcement online. Oh, actually, we made a YouTube video.
Okay.
And we just posted it to. We weren't like pushing for it, obviously, but we just posted a. I think it was more for the documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I thought about that, and you know, again, going back to the original vision for this podcast, we talked about posterity, right? You know, something that Zozo could look back on later in life and just be
Look
like,
at Dad.
oh, this dad was pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope so.
Dad was pretty cool. He had a foolish ass friend, but dad was pretty cool. And now once this kid's born, you know, this is out in the interwebs. You can always look back on it. I don't know. I know last time we talked about, you know, my old photo album and having all these cool pictures of my parents, and I don't know, one of these days, you know, when I'm long gone, I hope that, you know, my kid can go back and see videos and just realize, like, you know, at this moment, you know, even before meeting him or her, you know, that I was already madly in love, you know, with my kids. So.
This guy.
Yeah, man.
This freaking guy.
But yeah, man, you know,
I love it.
that's another thing too. We don't know the gender.
That's fine.
We're gonna be gangster about it and just be surprised.
Hey man, wait. That's crazy. I mean, that what you just said is nuts, because it's like you don't know this thing, but you die for it.
Right, man. Yeah.
Like,
you
know what I mean? Like it's kind of crazy. Everything just is centered on this thing now. Like
it is. You know, so one thing I don't want to ever do is take away from the experience that Tristan's had. She's physically carrying the baby, and I always wonder, you know, like I know that the mother and the father to be experience is going to be completely different, and maybe you can verify this, but you know, for Tristan, like she's in love with this baby because she's talking to it, she's carrying it, she feels it like kicking, like she knows that when I eat this, it's gonna do this, you know what I mean? And there's this physical connection that they have already. And for me, it's like a lot of it is the idea, the dream, you know, like this is what I'm envisioning, right? And I think, you know, for fathers, it's kind of a unique spot where it's like you don't have that physical connection until you actually see and hold, right?
Got it. Yeah. This is a good topic, by the way.
Yeah. You know, so I wanted to ask you about that. But, you know, the one thing I will say is, you know, we've had multiple ultrasounds, okay?
Okay.
And I can go into that, man. My goodness.
Let's get into it.
I got a stamp card for the ER, brother.
Oh, bro.
Jesus Christ. We've been to the ER so many times. You know, all within reason, because I think, you know, you always got to err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
But every time we go, it's obviously because we are worried that, you know, that something could be going on. But we did an anatomy scan, and, you know, baby's looking healthy. And it was the first time we actually got one of those 3D renderings. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Man.
Was it doing anything funny?
No. Well, okay. What's funny is most people will kind of like, you know, I don't know, you know, kind of looks like this, or he's got your eyes, or it's got your nose, whatever. This thing looks exactly like me, bro.
Oh, serious?
I'm not joking.
I was gonna say it's never accurate.
No, bro. I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is my kid,
bro.
Yeah. So, seeing that, I kind of got that emotion. Kind of looking at, you know, Tristan will always joke around and say I look like Shrek. I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. So she saw that. She's like, okay, the baby looks like Shrek. I'm like, awesome. Let's hope it's a boy.
Confirmed.
I don't want a Princess Fiona.
yeah.
But you know, seeing that image, it was just a mind trip. Kind of just being like, oh, this actually looks like me. I could tell that this is my kid.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so it was wild. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that, man? You know, like the carrying the baby versus the anticipation of the baby being born.
Yeah, I think that's an individual thing, right? Because from what my understanding, I heard that a lot of the men don't feel connected to the baby
Until you hold it.
Yeah, until you hold it and see it for obvious reasons, right?
Right.
I don't know though. For myself, I always knew that this thing was just a valuable little thing that's about to, that's growing.
Yeah.
So I had that in mind, and what kept me not connected, but what I think just being there with Joss and like just catering to her and all that stuff made me feel connected in some type of way.
Right.
And I think like from in that season, I was like, how can I contribute to Joss's, carrying of this child?
Gotcha.
And I think that's what kind of kept me, strung me along, just a small string that kept me connected. But once she came out, then that's when I was like, oh, dang, like
Daddy's girl.
We didn't know it. We didn't know genders either.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Did you?
yeah,
Oh,
we didn't know.
interesting. And
so
you were
the first thing. I didn't think anything else. But is there a boto in there?
okay. Be honest. Did you have a preference?
I did. Yeah, a boy.
You wanted a boy.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
And I'll tell you the reasons. One, if he has siblings,
Yep.
he would be the one to defend the the siblings, whether it's a boy or girl.
Gotcha.
Men just are strong generally, right?
Okay.
Yeah, or can get to the place. I just wanted the boy to be to defend whoever his siblings were.
Okay.
That was one. The second thing was that
There's always gonna be a Tita now. Now that you said that, she's gonna be defending her. You have another kid. She's gonna be the one defending that kid. You know that, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I told Josh, I was like, no, she's going jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm going back when she goes. Yeah. But the second thing was that I'm a guy. Like, I know how I think.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be probably similar to how he's gonna.
Okay, I got you.
Grow and formulate his ideas and his things.
Yeah.
So I know what's gonna creep up to him. I know what's gonna bother him. I know where he's gonna put his time and effort in and his intentions. And I was thinking it would be good for me. I would be ecstatic to be the one to kind of help him navigate that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because I was gonna say I know my faults.
Yeah.
And now I know what to tell him to prevent the things that I've gone through that could hurt him really bad. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, with all that said, I mean, not capping off here, but like you strike me as a girl dad. Like
yeah.
You know, like with all that said, like, you know, now that you have a daughter, like how has your perspective shifted on things?
I don't know if you talk about this, but it brings out a different side of a man.
Do you feel like it's a softer side?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's gonna be, well, again, every baby is gonna be different. Yeah. For Zozo, we're blessed, man. She's chill.
Yeah.
She's chill. Like she's not hard to discipline. She listens. She listens to when we tell her like no. She'll maybe do it one time again, and then she'll understand. Like I feel like she's just playing with us in a sense. But honestly, we have an easier time than other people's kids. I can.
She's adorable too, by the way.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah. Not that because every kid's gonna be different. They have different tempers, different tantrums, whatever it is.
Definitely.
And we're just blessed because she's pretty chill. Yeah. Cool. I mean, that's gonna change, right?
Man.
Because
terrible twos going into it, right? Yeah.
So terrible twos. Now that she's 2, people always bring it up, or mention it at least. And my theory is that because now she has an understanding of her body and her mind, like she knows what she can and can't do.
Gotcha.
Now there's the choice of do I do this? Do I do that?
I see.
I think that's what goes. That's just my theory with terrible twos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, did you what made you guys decide not to know the gender? Is that
I think going back to our anti-parenting days when Tristan would just show me TikToks of all these gender reveals. She's like, these people are so corny, and I'm like, and then that would be like our bonding thing. We're like, oh god, we would never do this. Like all the gender reveals, all of the the baby showers, all this stuff. Are like, that's just not for us. You know, like
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny how quick you'll change your tune. But I think for us, it was more. I think maybe from the initial experience, that all that we wanted to hear is that this baby's healthy, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or girl, as long as this baby's healthy. I'm like you. I mean, you know, I don't know any dude that doesn't want to have a boy. You know, I would love it for it to be a boy, for very similar reasons. One thing that I didn't think would really impact me the way it does was my namesake. Sounds crazy, but you know, so I don't have a big family. My dad's side of the family is not very large, and the last name Otaguro is actually not a very common name. I want to say on the island of Oahu, there is another Otaguro family.
I've never heard
that we're not related to. People ask me all the time, like, you related to so and so, and apparently they have a much larger family than ours. But for my family, it's my father, it's his brother, it's my cousin, and it's me. There's the four of us that have the last name Otaguro, other than my mom and now Tristan, right, through marriage. But you know, my cousin probably not gonna have kids at this point in his life. And you know, so for me, it's like, you know, if I don't have a kid, you know, the name dies. I know that sounds so crazy to think about it that way. And you know, they always say don't do things for your parents, don't do things for anyone other than yourself. But for whatever reason, that just instinct kind of kicked in at some point where I was like, you know, this is a thing. It would be amazing to just kind of have the last name go on. You know, but aside from that, you know, very similar things. You know, I like to think of myself as somebody that, you know, would be able to kind of just teach either my son or daughter things. But you know, when it comes to just the stuff that I know, you know, I did a lot of boy stuff growing up, right? So there's that. But yeah, man, you know, Tristan's fixated in the idea that this is a girl, and she's the one carrying it. So I feel like, you know, maybe she's got a little bit more insider information than I do. She truly feels like it's a girl, and if it's a girl, I'm gonna love her all the same. You know, I just feel like at this point we just feel really lucky. You know, so it doesn't matter. Our doctor is actually pretty cool, because she was just like, you know, this is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna take a look. I'm gonna you know, get the baby. I'm gonna hand it to you, and you're gonna be able to announce to your family what it is. And I'm gonna hold off on the names on the podcast here, but we do have we have a couple of names in mind for both boys and girls, and I think we're kind of set on a name for a boy and a girl, and you know, either way, I'm gonna be really proud and happy with. So
it's funny that you mentioned the namesake. Because, bro, that was that's still a thing in my head. And that was a big thing. Right. Because for the same reason, there's not many Biznars around. I'll Google it, and there's some people, but
you're like, that's not, I don't know.
That's not a Filipino name.
Yeah.
Biznar, that's not a Filipino thing. And so growing up in my late college years, I've always thought about that. Like, oh, shoot, like none of my two older sisters, they can't carry the name.
Right.
And I'm like, shucks, it's kind of on me almost. You know what I mean?
There you go.
And then, so I've made peace with that.
Yeah.
And how I did that was just a realization of, you know what, a name's you can pass on a name, that's cool.
Sure.
But you can also create that identity through your values and who you are.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And so it's like if I pass down my values to Zoe, she's gonna know she's the daughter of Ray.
Yeah.
Versus having the last name of Biznar.
That makes sense.
Know? And I was like, dang, okay.
Yeah.
I made peace with that. But I'm not gonna lie, I still want the bit. I still want it. It's still there.
So what are the plans? Like, do you think you guys want more?
The plan is to get a Biznar until you get that.
Well, okay. So in your head, going into, let me ask. Let's think back when you were younger. Like, did you always see yourself having a big family?
No,
really.
Only because we moved here in Hawaii in '95.
Okay.
It was just kind of us. We had like a few cousins here, but it was always the main family unit. And so
5 of you guys, right?
Just
two
five
sisters
of us.
and you.
Yeah. And then after it started expanding with my nieces and nephews, it was like, oh, this is interesting. Now my mind opened up to the idea of man, people lived with big families, like,
Yeah.
and have big families,
Yeah.
and it's just a different concept, bro.
Sure.
In my mind, it feels really. There's a lot of, not emotional. What do you call it? There's a lot to maintain or manage.
Yeah.
Like knowing your nieces and nephews and all that stuff and caring for them. It's tough because like for our family, we care like a ton for each other.
Absolutely.
And it's like now that it's expanding, it's like, oh, this is kind of difficult to do, almost in a sense. Yeah, that was my one of my thoughts. But I've never thought I've what do you call, have a big family.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because with Joss's side, she has a bigger family.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of introduced to like this whole family thing, like,
Sure,
hey, hang out with your cousins, you know what I mean, like all this stuff. So that was kind of foreign to me.
What blows my mind is you look at like where we're at, just the nuclear family in 2024, and just a lot of families have kind of downsized
Yeah.
in general. You know, people are having one kid, maybe two. Long gone are the days of people having like 10 kids, right?
Oh yeah,
But you know what?
Philippines is nuts.
Bro, what's wild though? Think about how expensive that is.
I think it's contingent upon.
But you know, I don't know. I guess for me, like, I hate to kind of always bring money back to things, but it always blows my mind how people were able to just have the resources and the finances to be able to support that many children.
Oh, back then or now?
Back then, dude. That's wild, right? I mean, you know, given inflation and whatnot, but like, I mean, you know, back in the day, yeah, people had these huge families. I'm like, how did you take care of all these kids?
Then inflation, this is a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one, right? There was a statistic. I think it's like, I don't want to say things out of my butt, but I think Dave Ramsey was saying like these new kids, they're complaining about blah blah blah. You know, back in the day, blah blah blah. And then this other influencer, I forgot what her name was, but she was mentioning, yeah, that's all true. But then the income, what do you call? It's 5 times harder to, or the wages, I guess.
Yeah.
Are like five times like what do you call? It is easier. It is essentially easier back then. You can live off of one occupation, salary, and feed 3 kids while owning a home.
And that's the thing too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, home ownership is hard enough to begin with, you know, in this day and age, especially in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
But you add to the mix like a newborn, like, man, it's wild. You know, I think that in itself might prevent some people from really looking at the idea of like, okay, I want to kind of start a family, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know. I mean, again, we were there, so I can freely speak about us having the mindset of like, you know, like not having children. You know, like the idea of like, hey man, buy some Yeezys right now. You know what I mean? Like,
was that frowned upon from certain people?
What do you mean?
Like, the idea of, I don't want kids because we're doing good, or not doing good, but you know, this is the life.
I never felt it from my friends.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Thankfully, I never felt it from my friends. My friends would often say, you know, like what you would say, like, oh, you know, it'll change. Everything will change. Like once you have this kid.
Sure,
and for me, I'd be like, nah, man, I gotta go buy these shoes and go travel. You know, go spend this money. But now it's like, yeah, you know, I mean, I'm thinking about where we went to go look at strollers the other day, bro. Expensive.
Yo, everything's they're being productized.
Yeah.
Productized? Is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. Everything's being productized or whatever. Making a product out of anything.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a bunch of strollers that I'm like, yo, they're making like weird foldable ones, and they're capitalizing it.
Well,
Let's
you know,
just say
okay, so this is how superficial I am, right? We're going there and Tristan's asking all these questions. This is at Nordstrom. We were taking a look, and they have this whole section, ladies just answer these questions, and I'm just like walking around taking a look. I'm like, I like this one, and of course, most expensive and coolest looking one, right?
Bro.
That's all I care about, right? I was like, this stroll is kind of gangster. I like this one. She's like, why? Because it's matte black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just saw it. I was like, it's got black wheels. It's awesome, you know.
Do you remember the name?
Was it Nuna? Yeah,
that's my. I was like, it's probably a Nuna.
It's a Nuna. It was a Nuna.
Yeah.
And then it was just funny, right? Where it's just weird where your brain goes. You know, when it comes to just like, again, that shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
we're in a weird spot right now where we haven't started nesting. I was kind of afraid of that. Tristan just she has a tendency. So when we got this house, like we made this plan. We're like, we're gonna spend money and we're gonna go one room at a time and furnish it, and we'll just kind of build a collection. And then within 1 month, the entire house was furnished and my bank account was depleted. Real talk. So I was like, don't do this shit again, okay? But it hasn't happened, like everybody, and maybe that was another reason too.
Sure.
So people are like, why you guys want to find out the baby, the gender? And we're like, because we don't want people to, like, number one, start buying a bunch of boys' clothes or girls' clothes. We don't want to, like, start getting the idea of, like, we got to set up the nursery this way or whatnot.
Yeah.
We kind of want everything neutral so that we can just kind of, like, paint as we go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's weird. She and I are such planners. So I think the biggest learn and the biggest frustration for the both of us is the unknowns. Like, no matter what,
sure.
There's so many variables and so many things that are going to happen that when you plan for it, it's never really going to go according to that. And you got to be able to pivot on a dime, right? Because that's just the way it is. And
a good example for that is the stroller that we got.
Yeah.
Was a Nuna.
Okay, got you.
It's a big one.
Okay.
It's a solid stroller. Like, everything about it is sturdy and it works, like, great.
Yeah.
The problem was we live upstairs.
Okay.
And so we have to constantly bring it up and down.
Yeah.
We ended up not using it a ton.
Yeah.
We just carried her around.
Yeah.
That wasn't the main problem. The unknown was that we didn't really take her on the stroller. We just carried her, and we just we ended up actually buying a smaller one. And even that we didn't use as much.
Yeah.
And then when we went to Japan, we were like, this stroller's it's too big. We got an even smaller one.
Yeah.
And that's when we realized, like, oh, this is the stroller we needed.
Yeah.
Unknowns like that.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
You're like, that was an expensive mistake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're trying to sell like
Well, it was so funny. That lady was just like, oh, like, you're going to have to, they have the dock, right, for the car seat.
It's a good system.
And then she was just like, yeah, you don't need it. You can whatever. I'm like, I'm going to take 2 docks because I need one for each car. She's like, it's a little excessive. And I'm like, I'm an excessive kind of guy. I'm talking about convenience here.
Hey, the dock is great though.
Yeah.
Because you can just plug in, plug out.
Yeah, that's what I ain't trying to, like, weave in, like, seatbelts and stuff when I'm trying to get in and out of places, man.
That thing is good. I would highly, especially when they're young and you utilize the whole lifespan of it.
Yep.
Yeah, get 2 docks, bro. 2 docks.
I wanted to ask you though. Okay, so when you, given past the excitement, when you found out that you guys were going to be parents, like, what are some of the things that you were afraid of?
Honestly, I think if I was afraid of things right now, I'm trying to think and pull it up, but nothing's really popping up.
Okay.
One of the realizations that came to me versus like that I'm thinking of now is that this is kind of like a tangent, but one of the things that I found out was that, like, they need a longer leave. Like 3 months isn't enough.
Oh yeah.
There's absolutely no way like we can live off of 3-month leave.
Okay.
I know like Scandinavia does like a year or something.
Bro, it's wild. Like, there's so
I-
many European countries that I'm just like, oh man, I wish. I know universal healthcare and all that. Like, I know there's a big argument on that when it comes to taking care of everybody and taxes and all that stuff involved. But I mean, to me, there's so many benefits to it. I just wish we could adapt some of those ideas and principles.
If it could work for like knowing what Josh went through and like the first 3 months, I was just like, yo, there's no way that that 3 months is the minimum.
Sure, absolutely.
A minimum a year, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was the first thing. So I guess if I can say I was afraid of one thing, it was how the schedule would look like when it's time for that leave to be over, I guess. Yeah, because we don't know how it's going to look like, or schedule wise. That was kind of more of my concern, maybe not fear, more of a concern.
Right.
We're super lucky and blessed because our parents offer, or at least my parents offer to watch her.
Childcare is huge, man.
Childcare is huge. But the main issue for us was trust.
Okay.
It's like we just want immediate family to watch. So
I get it.
yeah,
That makes sense.
we've read too many things of crazy people.
I listen to Rory and Mal, and Rory just had a kid. I want to say,
Oh, yeah.
his kid's maybe 2 years old, and then he said like him and the baby mom, they went on a date and they couldn't find anybody to watch, so they
Wow.
went with one of those services.
Yeah.
And then the babysitter was vetted, obviously, right? But I mean, essentially, it's like Uber for babysitting,
Sure,
right? You're like,
yeah.
vetted in the sense of like, like, okay, don't have a criminal record, but I
Sure.
mean, you don't know this person,
Yeah,
right?
you don't know. That's the thing, bro.
And I guess when he went to go pick her up, she was just like, oh, something was up, and then she was like, oh, and then the babysitter was just like, oh yeah, she had a little fall, but she's okay. And then I guess when she kind of got past the drowsiness, she was just screaming. So he took her to the hospital and found out she had a broken tubula. I was like,
What?
yeah, broke her. I was like, dude, that's not a small fall. That's a
That's not-
big
yeah.
fall. And, oh my god, I wouldn't even be able to fathom what would go through my head in regards to like
Yeah.
somebody put my baby at risk. So
Yeah.
hard enough to have anybody watch it, let alone a stranger, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, not everybody has that luxury or liberty of
No,
having
yeah.
families. So it's
Yeah.
a really blessed thing to be able to just be like, hey man,
Oh, we
someone that
recognize
we love and trust,
Yeah.
is able to watch our kid, right?
Yeah. What's do you have a fear? You have fears in your head? That,
Similar things, right? So I don't know. I Tristan and I have similar fears, and we have some different fears. I think for us collectively, and this is just a broad general statement, like, I mean, one thing that we talked about when we had initially talked about kids, early on in the marriage, was we really want to bring up a kid with the way that society is. And I know that sounds so morbid, but like,
No,
truthfully, it
no.
was just kind of like, look, man, I mean, like, to me, like, just there's so many things going on in the world that just I'm scared of. I can't imagine, a kid growing up in that environment. And a lot of that is what you can shelter them from, but also what you can teach them to prepare for that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's on my mind. That is definitely on my radar. But that is definitely a fear of mine, of like raising a kid in this environment. It's not a safe world.
it's not safe.
It's
bro.
not, you
Yeah.
know, you always got to be vigilant. You always got to have your head on a swivel, and you always got to make sure like you're prioritizing the safety of this child. So that's a fear of mine. But I think another thing too is, just the idea of failure, just failing. I would hope that, between Tristan and I, we will be able to figure this out. But there's the fear of not knowing what to do in a moment, and like making decisions that weren't the best. And I think that's just something that all parents feel.
Yeah.
And I think that, after the first, second, and third mistake, you're like, okay, that's just part of life, right? Where,
Yeah.
there's not going to be a perfect upbringing. There's not going to be such a thing where everything is going to work out according to
Yeah.
plan, like we talked about. But there's just that fear of like, making the wrong decision when it comes to raising this kid. So I think those are some of the things that we're worried about. I think for Tristan, some of her fears, is just making sure that any of the things that existed in her life prior, that like she has had to kind of work on herself and grow from, and evolve from, that she doesn't bring that into this kid's childhood. A lot of that, it just deals with just communication. A lot of it deals with just being vocal and being expressive, and just making sure that you're providing a safe space for this kid to grow up in, not just physically, but also emotionally. That, like, hey, they understand our role as parents is to protect and to support and to love, but also to, befriend, where it's like, hey, I want my kid to look at me as somebody that he can come to and talk to about anything.
Yeah.
No matter what it is,
Love
right?
that,
I don't
yeah.
ever want them to be scared of coming
Yeah.
to talk to me about whatever is on their mind.
Yeah.
So those are the things that have kind of been occupying us at the moment, But yeah, I think we'll figure it out, man.
That's awesome. No, when you talk about the last thing you said, it's like that's one of our goals. My goals is like, and that's you have to what do you call? You have to know that prior to.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like a one event thing.
Absolutely.
It's like years and years of loving this thing,
Sure.
this child.
Sure.
And then them knowing that they're loved enough to know that they won't, be, I don't know, scolded or yelled at, or,
Yep.
when something
Yep.
comes up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's
Absolutely.
super, dude, I love that. That's super good.
What I wanted to know, like, how has becoming a parent altered your relationships in general? Maybe with Joss, with your family, with your friends. Like, how have things changed?
I think with Joss, because she's the mother, physically she goes through changes.
Yeah.
I seen it ahead where it's like I need to be there consistently, because she's done the work
Yeah.
of delivering this baby, and now still has to continue with breastfeeding, and I think for myself, our relationship, like, it's almost like being that selfless, knowing how to be selfless.
Yep.
And recognizing that, hey, this season is not, you need to lay down your priorities. You can have your priorities in later down the line. That's fine. But right now, she, like, keep the relationship good by being there for her, in a sense.
Gotcha.
One specific thing is sex. It's like, yo, your wife's gonna have a lot of maybe not a lot, but there's emotions that will come and go.
Yeah.
You'll have emotions when I'm talking to myself, right? I'll have emotions when I that'll come and go, but don't try to force anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just cater to her, and knowing that it's not just a season of no's for me, not just with sex, but with a lot of things. It's understanding that this isn't the place and time to seek out my priorities right now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think that's one thing, and our relationship has been got better
Okay.
in a sense.
Okay.
So for her, our relationship got better because now, with that in mind, I tried to communicate more.
Okay. That makes sense.
And in a sense, because I want her to know what I'm feeling as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that, I was glad for that change, I guess. I feel like, man, when there's a kid involved, there's new communication that needs to happen.
It
right?
has to happen.
It has to happen.
Yep.
Scheduling, chores, whatever it may be. But that really helped me. Actually, I took advantage of that. All those opportunities to, like, okay, this is a time I need to tell her, or to say something in this way.
Yes.
So for myself, that helped me with the relationship.
That's good.
So that I would say it changed for the better, in a sense, or it evolved in a better way. Yeah.
What about with, like, family and friends?
With family friends, that's a little different, because
Okay.
now you're putting your time and your yeses into your family, which that's priority. Like,
Right.
I don't care if I lose friends, bro. Like, this
Yeah.
is my priority right
Yeah.
now. Even for church, like, my ministry is at home now. Like, so if there's something that they ask me to do at the church, sometimes I'm comfortable saying no now.
Yeah.
Because my family is where my ministry starts first.
Okay.
Like, if I don't have a strong household,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have a strong household or strong, what do you call, a strong me outside of
Yeah. That makes
outside of
sense.
that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't hang out much to begin with, but even now it's like, oh, I don't go on walks with my neighbor anymore, or I don't go on a phone call with people that I do talk on the phone as much.
Yeah.
And I'm totally okay, bro.
Yeah.
Totally
I get
okay
it.
with that.
I get it. I get it. That
Do you
makes sense.
anticipate any relationship changes in your?
Yeah, okay, so Tristan and I, like, I mean, similar to you, like, I think this has brought us closer. We were already in a great spot. I think that this was kind of a catalyst. I mean, it sounds crazy, because I always felt like we were in just a really good spot with our marriage, but I think that this brought us closer because this is something that we shared, something that we both genuinely
That's
learned
amazing.
that we wanted,
Yeah.
it's one thing when one person wants something and the other person adapts to it, but when you both discover that this is what you both wanted, it's a great feeling, right? So there's that. Something. Yeah, go ahead.
Before you move on,
Yes.
what makes you sound? Because it sounds like you guys were kind of fixated on the fact that this is the perfect life we have.
Yeah, well,
What made you think that way, or what?
I think that we would look at what other people had in regards to people with families, and we would think to ourselves like, okay, that's great for them, that's not for us. Like I look at like how much this cost, and I look at like they don't have any time to themselves. I look at like how freaking like some of my friends that like
Baby's crying.
they just look exhausted, and I'm all like, bro, you used to be so stylish. Now you look like Adam Sandler. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, where I was like, that's not me, man. I don't want that to be me. I like the fact that I'm 45 and people think that I'm 10 years younger. I didn't want to like age over. I look at some of my friends that are like, they look like they're in their 50s already, just because they had a couple of kids. Talked about our high school reunion. So I don't recognize anybody. They all got kids. I kind of prided myself on being the guy that just like, wow, man, like that guy must have it figured out. Living the life, And that all went away. There's gonna be remnants of that, of course, but those are all things that I thought about, right? So when it came to Tristan and I, when we decided that this is what we wanted to do, I mean that was a huge factor. But I think things that have changed between us is again me recognizing where I need help. I'm realizing that I can't do this alone. I think early on, because I couldn't, I'm not physically carrying the baby, I told myself I need to 100% take care of everything else. And early on, I realized that that's not possible. Tristan did something the other day, which was really interesting. I think she could just kind of sense that I was just annoyed. I find myself getting annoyed and irritable pretty quickly when I come home after a long day of work and things aren't done. And I don't expect her to do it, but at the same time, it's like the last thing you want to do after you had just such a long day yourself, right? But she just said, hey, she probably was gaslighting me, but she was basically like, you're creating this situation for yourself. I'm not asking you to do these things. You are taking it upon yourself to do all the laundry, to clean the house, to wash the clothes, to wash the dishes, put everything away, cook dinner, all that stuff. And her thing was like, hey, I have needs. Like, if you don't wash the laundry, I'm gonna need underwear at some point. I'm gonna have to do it. If I'm hungry, I gotta make myself food, even if I gotta just pour a bowl of cereal, And it kind of flipped the perspective of, for me, like where I was like, I'm telling myself I need to do all these things, but I gotta want to do all these things. You know what I mean? And that kind of, her saying that kind of helped me reset, where I'm like, look, I want to get back to the place where I want to be doing these things for my wife to help her out. But the moment that it's feeling like it's just something that is expected out of me. We talked about like how harder things are when it's expected out of you versus when you want to do it, right?
I'm telling you, yeah.
So her giving me permission to feel that way, it's helped a lot.
Wow,
that's helped a lot.
Shouts out, Tris.
Yeah. But regarding my family, like, we've always been tight. I just think that this is gonna make us tighter. I got a cool voicemail from my niece Violet the other day, and she had just seen the ultrasound, and she just left a voicemail. I was like, I think it's a boy, and she hangs up the phone. I was like, well, what was that? But it's kind of fun. I was like, you mean Shrek? But with friends, it's always been different. I've always been afraid. I look at like some of my really close friends that I've drifted from after they've had families.
Okay.
And I've always felt some type of way about that. And I know I'm not really vocal about it. I'm happy for them, but I've always kind of wondered, like, what? I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be the guy who just is like, now can't do anything or whatever.
Yeah.
And then now I understand it. I get it. Just like what you said, like your priorities shift. It's cool to have fun. It's cool to catch up. It's good to maintain relationships, but now the things that matter the most is what's happening in your home, right? And I think I'm starting to get that.
Yeah,
kind of feel like a dick now, but holding on to all that resentment for some of the homies that had kids early on. Now they're like, all right, now you're gonna get it, buddy.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, when it comes to that, not being able to spend time with friends or whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in my head like, because I'm in that spot where we don't we have like we meet up with friends here and there.
Yeah.
Not many. Even the dating thing, going out on date.
Yeah.
Even just one. I think this was like the first time we went out to go eat by ourselves and go watch Shen Wang.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Yeah. When we went to go, we had a date.
Gotcha. Was that show good?
Yeah.
That guy's hilarious. It's
yeah.
hilarious.
But it's funny because in my head, I was playing all these like what do you call scenarios in my head, and be like, him going to the audience, hey, why'd you come to this show, and blah blah blah, and me being trying to think I'm funny. If he asked me, I would have said, I don't know. My wife told me. I thought we were going to a Shen Yun show. That would have been my answer. But going back to the date, we that was the first time in maybe a year or something. We go out to do errands and whatnot, but not like on a date. Get dressed up, go dinner, go to show. I would say now looking back, at least try to do one more per year.
Okay, so we talked to our therapist about this, and she said that it's important to always remember the priority will always be this child, but you need to continue to date your partner. Like the moment that you switch into this thing where you're basically co-parenting under the same roof,
100%.
then you look at this person not as your spouse. You look at it as like this is my
partnership.
This is my roommate that helps me take care of this kid. You don't ever want to get to that point. She said it's important to keep the romance alive, and whether it's just being intentional with everything. And that's something that I think Tristan and I really want to prioritize, and easier said than done, but we'll see. I do look at like some of my friends that have really, really great marriages with children, and I think they find a good balance of, making sure all the needs of the kid is met, but also spending that time with each other. I think that's super important. So
one thing I've realized, Jill, was for me, if I were to teach my son the dating world or marriage, there's a skill set that I think is probably one of the most valuable things, one of the top valuable things in keeping a marriage, at 100 is being in that dating phase.
Yeah.
And it's like you haven't caught her, but you're trying to catch her.
Gotcha.
To be in that space while after marriage and have that affinity and just have that desire to want this woman.
Yeah.
To be in that phase is such a skill.
It is.
It's such a skill, and I don't know how you get there, but I try to do it through comedy and just making her laugh and doing jokes and whatever. But if you can stay in that spot, like you're never gonna be swayed from.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm trying to do that now.
Well, I think, and this is kind of a good place to start wrapping up, but when I think of like my parents and I look at like them being together for 50 years, having two kids together, raising a family, and now, being grandparents with my niece and nephew, and now, of course, my child. And it's just looking at a spot where, again, that they've just had such an amazing partnership, this amazing love that's lasted for such a long time. There's so many things that I want to just emulate when it comes to what they did as parents, what they did in their relationship. But, asking you, like, what are some of the things that you grew up with that you were like, hey, this is something that I want to make sure that my family continues on with?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we mentioned it where one of the, again, man, I'm blessed because I have great parents. I have great parents, super good parents. And I don't want to mention that without saying, we got discipline, we got hit and all that stuff. That's what made them so good. One of the things that made them good. And it's just the way that my dad, specifically my dad, the way that he talked to me, it's so powerful because it allowed me to, say what I wanted to say without being judged or whatnot.
Okay.
I was corrected, of course, but I was able to go to him without, feeling like like I hid in shame or something.
Yeah.
My mom's grew up different from my dad, so she has a different way of talking to the kids and whatnot. But from their relationship, again, there was only one main, similar to like your parents. There was only one main argument that they had that I remember clearly in my mind. And when I think about that compared to the years that they've been married, I'm like, yo, like this is something that I want to pass on to my kids.
Sure.
And and I think one thing that's that they did, like routine wise, was every Saturday, I think I mentioned that every Saturday we'd go to West Lock, we'd rollerblade.
That's cool.
And just every Saturday.
Yeah.
In my mind, what that did was it told me, like, every Saturday we're spending time with the family.
Yeah.
And it was good times. We're rollerblade as kids. You enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's this expectation that it's family time.
Yeah.
As a kid, that's what I'm expecting. Now, what I get out of it is that my parents were building they were strengthening the cord of the family bond.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to pass down to Zoe. So we're trying to find something, and we do things that are similar in the sense that, and of course she's a kid now, but a baby now, but later down the road, we have that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about you? What are you looking forward
man,
to?
So I think the key to my parents' relationship was the way that they communicated with each other. And then Tristan and I think we have such a good, strong relationship because we talk. I think we prioritize talking. Like, so it's kind of funny. I drive in. We both drive in every morning in opposite directions, and we have about 45 minutes to an hour. We talk on the phone almost every morning on the way to work, on the way back from work while we're stuck in traffic. We call each other and kind of talk about each other's day.
It's a lot of talking.
It's a lot of talking, and then we get home, and then we gotta hear about The Office some more. But you know what though? I cherish that because I think about how lucky I am that she trusts me with this information when things are good and when things are bad. And when we have a kid in the equation, I want my kid to see us talking the way that we do and realize that it's okay to be able to share feelings the way that we do.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Good and bad, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something I learned from my mom and dad. They never minced words when it came to how they felt. And I'm hoping that seeing that at an early age, my kid will just kind of establish that relationship with us, that they just again feel like we can be trusted with anything, any information that they need from us. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, man, wrapping things up, like, you got any advice for me, man?
No, I mean, you know what? What I would say is just, is to try to be malleable to situations and be, what do you call? I wouldn't say to let down expectations, but to just go with things. I think because from my experience, if I put an expectation to myself and it doesn't happen, then I'm shot. I have my things goes on in my head that don't tend to end up well.
That makes sense.
Versus if something happens, okay, what do we do next?
Gotcha.
That's what I would say. To upcoming fathers.
I like it, man. I like it.
Yeah. What are you most excited about before you?
What I'm most excited about? Content for this podcast. Just to be clear, everybody, my wife gave me a child so that I have more content for this podcast.
That was a plan. No?
The 990 goes on. No, man. What I'm most excited about is just holding this baby and just feeling proud.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the future. I don't know. The future is his or hers. They can do whatever they want to do with this life, and I just want them to know that no matter what, I'll be proud of them. So that's what I'm excited about. Yeah, man.
Amazing. Yeah.
But hey, brother, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, bro. Happy Father's Day.
We timed this perfectly.
It lined up. It lined up.
I know. I was like, we gotta have this baby now so that by episode 29.
Close.
But hey, everybody, thank you so much. Again, this journey will continue. I appreciate everybody, the outpouring of love that I've gotten so far. And again, this isn't podcast fodder. I'm just joking. I don't want people to think that this is just content for me. This is my real life. The things that Ray and I share are very personal. This is probably the most personal episode that I think we've done so far.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me that, we can just talk at the microphones, and no matter who hears it, if it resonates with anybody, it really means a lot to me. So thank you for everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and till next time.
Till next time.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.